The human rights organisation, the Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo, announced on Friday that another grandchild stolen under the country's brutal dictatorship has been identified, bringing the total to 138. It's a powerful moment for human rights, but it's happening in a political climate where memory and justice in Argentina are under threat. To understand the significance, we need to go back to Argentina's last military dictatorship from 1976 to 1983. During that time, thousands of political dissidents and their families were abducted, tortured and murdered. Among the horrors, pregnant women in detention were forced to give birth only to have their babies taken away and illegally adopted by families often tied to the regime. These children grew up without any knowledge of their true identity. Since democracy returned, the Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo have led the search for these stolen children. Their relentless work using DNA databases and public campaigns has resulted in the identification of 138 missing grandchildren so far. This week's discovery is a bittersweet reminder of both the progress made and the families still searching for answers. While this success is something to celebrate, it's happening in the context of increasing challenges. The government's recent budget cuts have significantly affected agencies dedicated to memorialising and investigating human rights abuses. For example, the National Commission for the Right to Identity, CONADI, which helps track and identify stolen children, felt the teeth of the government's budget chainsaw earlier this year and was forced to close its unit dealing specifically with children stolen by the dictatorship, because it was said to be an unnecessary expense. Similarly, the country's memory sites, like ESMA, a former detention centre turned museum, are struggling with cuts and layoffs. These places are not just memorials, they're educational centres, ensuring the crimes of the dictatorship are not forgotten. Without proper funding, their ability to preserve this history and reach younger generations is at risk. ESMA and other such sites have often been compared to old World War II concentration camps, which are still preserved here and there across Europe. But at times of economic hardship, is the expense of the upkeep of such places really justified? And for how long is it right to keep memorialising what is fast becoming ancient history? President Javier Milei and members of his administration have been accused of downplaying the dictatorship's atrocities. Milei himself has referred to the period as a war, framing it as a battle between two sides rather than state terrorism targeting its own citizens. His vice president, Victoria Villarruel, who comes from a military family, has openly advocated for recognising the victims of guerrilla groups during the same era, creating a both sides or two demons narrative that many see as an attempt to rewrite history. Critics argue that this is more than just revisionism, it's an attempt to erase the voices of the victims. This rhetoric is deeply hurtful to the families of the estimated 30,000 disappeared, although the denialists dispute that generally accepted figure, calling it a politically motivated exaggeration, and often suggesting something much lower like 9,000 victims. The discovery of this latest grandchild stands as a direct counterpoint to denialism. It's a living, breathing testament to the dictatorship's crimes. Argentina's history of state terrorism isn't ancient, it's within living memory. For the victims' families, the wounds are still fresh. The work of organisations like the Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo has given some closure, but it's far from over. There are still hundreds of grandchildren out there unaware of their true identities. This discovery also highlights the tension between Argentina's past and present. On one hand, the country has been a global leader in prosecuting crimes against humanity, with dozens of former officials sentenced in landmark trials. On the other, budget cuts and denialism rhetoric threaten to undo decades of progress. The discovery of another missing grandchild is a moment of hope and justice, but it's also a call to action. Will Argentina continue to confront its past honestly, or will it allow denialism and underfunding to chip away at the hard-fought gains of the last 40 years? What do you think? Should the government be doing more to support human rights organisations and preserve memory sites? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share to keep these stories alive. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link below, and I'll see you next time.